anyone who is doing this thing and has done a bunch will find the answer in his own heart and mind. It is that personal. There are, who knows, as many reasons as there are people who do it. It's far more than just an athletic competition. This thing it's hard to really describe or verbalize, but somehow it's got to be in your heart more than in your brain.
Welcome to the Birch Legacies podcast. We are sharing stories celebrating the motivation, the perseverance, and the lifestyle choices necessary to reach the status of Birchlegger. That is, skiers who have completed 20 or more Birkies, Korteloppets, or a combination of both. We would love to hear from Birchleggers young and old who have a story to tell about what keeps them coming back year after year. Information about appearing on this podcast is in the podcast notes. Well, hi, folks. Welcome back to Birch Legacies. And if you're talking about Birkebeiner legacies, I think there's none greater than the gentleman that I'm speaking to right now. His name is John Kotar. And if you are a Birkie skier, you probably know his name. Why don't you say hi to everyone, John?
Hello, skiers. I wish I were there with you, but now I just putz around the house a little.
There you go. There you go. So for those of you that don't know, John is a founder, skied the very first Birkebeiner and many, many, many more later. We'll talk to him about
Yeah, a
that.
bunch of them.
Yeah, a bunch of them, a whole bunch of them. And he is also credited with starting up the Birchleggings Club. So we're going to talk to him about some of those kinds of things. And John, I'm just going to start out by asking I think everyone's going to want to know a little bit about your unique perspective. How is it that you turned up at the line that very first time in 1973? How did you hear about it, and what got you to go out and try that thing?
Yeah, that's a very good question. We always come up with that. Many coincidences. First of all, I was living in Milwaukee in those days. Not much skiing down there, as you probably imagine.
Yeah.
But I was just a skier because I immigrated to this country from Slovenia.
Okay.
So anyway, to understand me, I was nuts about skiing of any kind.
Mm-hmm.
And I discovered along the way that there was such a thing up here as this Birkebeiner that we were talking about. Simply, it was kind of the word of mouth got me there. I went wherever the snow was, wherever I could put some skis on the ground, I'd be there.
Yeah.
And the rest kind of followed.
So you just heard about it like in a ski shop in Milwaukee, or where did?
Yeah, exactly. In fact,
Okay.
if I had to think precisely, I wouldn't be able to tell you. But you're quite right. It was in a ski shop somewhere.
Okay.
They started talking about this, and nobody could pronounce the name. Birkebeiner is quite a name.
Yeah.
So they all mumbled it, even at the event itself. I don't think anybody ever pronounced it right. I had to learn slowly, precisely what really is.
Yeah. To say it and to spell it. I think those are both challenges early on.
They are.
Yeah, yeah. So you ended up getting up there. So let's talk about that very first one. I think, that's just to most memories, mine included. There's just a black and white photo of those intrepid 35 skiers lined
Yeah.
up. And how did what was it like that day?
Yeah. Well, the best I can tell you, as I say, I was kind of refreshing my memory here by reading the questions and all that. It was beyond anybody's belief today who know about Birkie or heard about it or do it. You got to realize that to that day, there was no Birkebeiner.
Right.
So when I discovered that it was somewhere around Hayward Cable area, we got up here. We drove up in the morning, just my wife and me at the time. And well, I got to Hayward. I stopped at the first gasoline station and I tried to ask where the start of the Birkebeiner is. Well, no one has ever heard of it. No one could pronounce it, including me.
Yeah.
That was the start.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, sure. Who would know? Because first time ever and
Who
a
would
small
know?
group.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so how did you find it? It was if I remember, it ended up being in the Lumberjack Bowl. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, it was starting on a lake at Lumberjack
Mhm.
Ball, right? We
Yeah.
went from Hayward to Cable rather than the other way
Yeah.
around. Yeah, so it took some investigating to find the start.
Yeah.
And in every sense of the word, I asked several times, this bar, that gasoline station, here and there, and somehow somebody kind of pointed me in the right direction that it had to be down on a lake somewhere. And I remember you wind up down there, there were hardly any cars around, parked wherever you sort of could. And then I could see that maybe a few hundred yards down, I could see the shoreline of the lake. There were a few handful of people kind of there. That
Hmm.
looked like they were skiing.
Right.
So I said, good enough
Troublemakers.
for me.
Yeah. Troublemakers milling about, huh? So you just,
Yeah, exactly.
there you go.
Yeah.
Cool. Did you travel with somebody? Did a friend of yours ski with
Yeah.
you?
Well, at that time, again, I was married not to Nina at that time. My first marriage, I was married, and my wife was with me. She was not a skier,
Okay.
and
But you didn't have another skier with you.
nothing. No,
Okay. So you just showed up with your stuff and
I just showed up.
yeah. Do you happen to remember the equipment? Did you have like wooden skis, I
Yeah,
assume?
sure.
And
Those are the things that are easier to remember.
yeah, yeah.
In those days, of course, we were all wood.
Hmm.
So I specifically had a little better skis than most. There are good reasons for that. I was obviously, well, in my 30s, I was employed. I had some money, so I could go to the ski shop and buy what was current at the time,
Okay.
expensive stuff. But they were still wooden skis with lignostone edges,
Oh
as
yeah.
you'd remember.
That's the fancy
Uh,
stuff. Those lignostone edges you had to pay extra for.
yeah, eventually you did have
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
But somehow I discovered this too is a story in itself. It was not easy to find so-called racing skis
Hmm.
in those days. You didn't just go to any ski shop. You
Right.
had to travel all over.
Yeah. If I recall,
And
the racing skis were called light touring even. Weren't is that what
well,
right?
even exactly at first, something like for Birkie, it would be light touring, but racing skis did exist. Obviously,
Yeah.
people on Olympics and so on used proper racing skis.
Okay.
But we just had light touring. You're quite
Yeah.
right.
Got it. Okay. So you got to the line and they started you out. And, from the stories I've heard, it was kind of a cobbled together course of forest roads and some
Oh,
trails and things like that. Or just talking about like how you followed the trail. What do you remember about the actual skiing that day?
oh, it was fantastic, really, in a sense. You were out there and you had no idea where you were at any time. Uh, the so-called ski track, which nowadays everybody's used to, obviously, you ski in
Yeah.
these well-prepared. There was no such thing.
Yeah.
They ran a snowmobile up the thing to kind of flatten down whatever snow there was, and then somebody was skiing like a water skier behind that snowmobiler, and he put in whatever imprints there might have been,
Yeah.
uh, including with all of the slip ups, going wide and narrow,
Yeah.
and it was horrible. It was an alpine skier pulled by a snowmobiler. Neither of them knew the first thing about cross country skiing, and they prepared the trail for a big first Birkebeiner.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. So yeah, because we've all experienced someone breaking trail in front of you whose skis don't go where you wish they had gone, right?
Yep,
That's
yep,
what you had happening. That's amazing.
yeah.
So did
Well,
so did you end
it
up
was
finding like someone to ski with out there? I mean, with only 35 people stretched out that distance, you must have been pretty low density out there.
well. You got it exactly. I skied by myself 90% of the time,
Hmm.
as you can imagine.
Yep.
Uh, it's funny that I still remember because I recalled it many times. The start is really funny. We're lined up in one line. We
Yep.
have photographs of that. You probably have that in the pictures. So
Right.
I can find myself easily because I have one leg behind me kind of ready to go.
Uh-huh.
So we blast off on the lake. Everybody took off like it's a 100-yard dash. By the end of the lake, half of them were gasping already for air. And I was a little smarter in those days, at least that much. I says, I don't need to sprint.
Yeah.
By the time we got to the end of the lake, I was completely fresh compared to the rest. I skied right through the mob.
Uh-huh.
And I guess I was kind of among the front few, whatever they were.
Sure.
We went up like that. The entire time, of course, hoping are we on the trail or not? I mean, there was
Yeah.
just ordinary terrain. logging road eventually, and that was
Yeah.
there was gravel under snow. I remember that. I mean, it was the
Yeah. Well, so
hard
was there
work.
a lot of, was it a deep snow year? Or did you have lots of snow? Or
No,
like you said, there was
no,
barely enough to cover?
no, and those are the kind of things you do remember. Snow was rather minimal,
Uh-huh.
and because the trail was not truly a ski trail yet developed for that, it was just connecting uh, logging roads, skid roads, you name it. So you
Yeah.
can kind of imagine what the surface was like. So whatever snow there was, and whatever they tracked on it with that simple equipment, it was incredibly spotty.
Yeah.
You just simply had to use your wits so you didn't kill yourself,
Yeah,
basically.
right. Well, most of us know now we're so spoiled by the quality of the trails that
Yeah.
they've been designed and groomed in such a way that you're not going to hit the tree at the bottom of the hill, and
Yep.
you turn and I know even my first Birkebeiner, which was 79, the trail was much different
That's
than it is
early
today.
enough. Yeah.
And so it was just like a two track, two tracks together, and
Yep.
there were definitely some tight turns that were
Glad they were. Yeah,
spooky. Yeah, yeah.
they were.
But I can imagine if you're breaking trail the first time ever on marginal snow, that must have been quite the challenge.
Marginal
So
snow with goofy
yeah,
skis that
yeah.
didn't have the kind of edge that you need. You name it.
So do you
Well,
remember? So when
yeah.
in the middle of skiing it, I mean, you talked about early on, you were smart about keeping it kind of under control. Did you find yourself really gassed partway through and have to take a break, or did you go kind of straight through to the end?
I did, but I knew how to pace myself.
Yeah,
So, well, I was new to ski racing or this kind of thing. I sure as heck was not new to navigating the raw environment.
sure.
So I understood the pace concept. So I would ski at the pace that I felt that I could maintain
Yeah,
for a while.
yeah,
I would walk up a hill where the people around me would try to herringbone and they
yeah,
would try to sprint up there only to fall over and gasp at the top
yeah.
of the hill. I ski by and say, "See you."
Yeah, there you go.
It was like
So
that.
yeah, okay. So now you made it to the end, obviously. Do not that it's important, but do you happen to remember about how long it took you?
Yeah. Well, sure, it is important. I wish I should have done a little homework knowing this conversation was coming up. It
It's all
was
right.
very long, I think 5+ hours.
Okay. Well, that's,
Uh,
that's reasonable. Very
uh,
reasonable. You know what my
five,
long, do you know what my first one was?
yeah,
6 hours and 42 minutes.
yeah. Well, they went longer. I remember later in other years too. They were 5, 6, 7, even 8.
Yeah.
I know people doing it at all times.
Hmm.
So 5 hours wasn't all that awful.
No,
Uh,
that's pretty good, I think.
yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah, that's really good. So then you got to the end, what kind of celebration or how did you know you were, close to the end or when you got done, what did they do to celebrate your
Yeah,
finish?
Telemark was super interesting. Uh, you got there, they did have an occasional kilometer marker
Yeah.
somewhere.
Okay.
So I recall this, that we were getting close. And as I was really getting in there to get to the finish, the last couple of kilometers, all of a sudden the trail goes straight up. It was designed so it went straight up the ski hill on the
Yeah,
backside.
I believe it. Yeah. Okay.
So you had to climb first.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, what is finished at the very top? Well, once we did get to the very top, well, there was the arrows down. Now I had to shoot downhill and somehow survive.
Oh my. Oh my. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
how
I
it
can
is.
picture it and I think a lot of listeners can picture it because we've heard of I got to experience it, but we started my first time
Yeah.
started at Telmark and going up the hill and then came
Yeah,
down
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Stormone. Yeah,
Oh, yeah, that was,
and you went up Stormone and then back down the front hill.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
right.
And then you finished. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Finished
and
down right in front of the lodge, basically.
yeah, and
Yeah. I remember I was a downhill skier, that much I'll
sure.
say. So I could sort of show off at the end when all of the skiers ahead of me were falling over, nobody was standing. And I come zooming down in my tuck right up to the lodge and into the rack of skis that were all parked over there, knocked the whole damn thing over.
Oh, really? Okay. Oh, that might
It
have
was
been
a good,
quite
it
the
was a
have been
good
quite,
finish.
yeah, you made your mark.
Yeah,
That's funny.
yeah, yeah.
You and I talked this fall at some length, and we were at an event for the Birchleggers, and we were talking about this, and that someday we'd get this recording done. But you were just so thankful to Tony Wise for what he did in starting this whole
Yeah.
thing. And I was wondering if you just take a couple minutes to talk about what you shared with me, and I know you shared with other people about how much credit you give to Tony for getting this whole thing going.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Tony, obviously, being a Norwegian himself, he was whatever second generation Norwegians, and he wanted to establish something here that kind of connects back to his heritage. That
Mm-hmm.
was his whole purpose. Uh, and that's why it was actually so darn funny in a way. He had this thing in mind to make some kind of a landmark here
Mm-hmm.
to kind of establish the Norwegian heritage a little bit on this end, but knew not the first thing about skiing
Mm-hmm.
itself.
Yeah.
But he did know, obviously, the history of the Birkebeiners and all that.
Yeah.
And that's how we all learned about it in the first place.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and of course, he's well known, character, legend, whatever you want to call them here in the
Yeah.
Hayward area. And in
Oh,
fact,
yeah.
there's a big painting of him downtown.
Surely.
And certainly he risked everything throughout his career to make kind of a grand statement. And the Birkebeiner is one of the most lasting legacies of his.
Yep.
And it is amazing just to think about how many of us have been affected by his essentially just saying, let's get some people together and ski a
Yeah.
race that is
Yeah.
similar to the one in Norway. So, and you were there at the beginning, which I'm just in awe of that. And
Oh,
you did so many of them. You did lots and lots of them.
yeah.
Do you remember some of the? Are there some more memorable ones when you were
Uh,
out there competing? Were you ever kind of a racer competitor, or was it always just to finish?
yeah. I do remember, as long as I don't have to relate to a specific one, obviously,
Oh
that
yeah.
would never work.
They all
But
blend together when you get to a certain number.
yeah, but the various times and how it went, that obviously I remember real well. I was extremely competitive, or I wouldn't be there in the first place.
Okay.
So I did come up not just to tour from
Okay.
place to place. I was going to do the best I could. And I did pretty damn well. I remember, well, looking at my records, the results are there for all of the Birkies. My goal was obviously each year to improve
Mm-hmm.
my my standing, and I did. The first year was kind of funny because you learn about all of these things. So the next year, I took some significant amount of time off my first time. You learn the tricks, obviously, and you do better. But it went like that year after year after year. There was always something, obviously, you were zeroing in, try to identify what is it that I can do better. Because the point is, with this, I really was competitive. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to really do as good as technically possible and as
Sure.
well as I could.
Good. So now, did you always live in Milwaukee during most of the Birkies, or did you move up this way, or
The first started with Duluth, and then I even forget. Oh, Houghton, Michigan.
Houghton, Michigan? Okay, well, that's
Yeah.
good snow country.
Well, that was terrific snow country, and in fact, that was a big boost to my, how should I say, following success at the
Yeah, for
Birkie.
sure, for sure.
We had long
So,
season.
yeah, what kind of work did you do, John?
That's simple enough. I was a professor in forestry
Okay,
at University of Wisconsin. Eventually, maybe it was at Wisconsin Madison at the time. Yeah, but yeah, that was my position.
okay, cool. Professor, an academic. I love it. I love forestry. I took forest. I was a science teacher and took forestry courses a couple times, and I just loved. What's that term when when you go through with your stick and measure the trees and try to get the board feet in a forest
Yeah,
plot? That
yeah.
was kind of yeah.
Cruising. Did we
Cruising,
cruise?
that's the word. That was the word.
Yeah, that's
Cruising,
the word. We were
cruising
cruising.
the forest. Yeah.
Yep.
I love that idea. When I first learned about that, I thought, wow, this is cool. I could
Yeah.
just walk around. And I'm sitting here, I've got 3 acres here. And while we're speaking, my maple trees are giving me a bunch of sap.
Uh-huh.
Yep. So
Oh, did you tap him?
we tapped a bunch of trees, and
Oh,
I did one boil this morning, and when we're done here,
oh,
I'm gonna collect some bags and do another boil. So it's
fantastic. So
fun
it's
to be
that
up here.
season.
Yeah, it's running
That's
really well today.
that's terrific.
Yeah.
That's terrific.
So let's see. Well, I was going to ask you about some of your kind of training and stuff. So if you were in Houghton or even in Duluth or wherever,
Yeah,
you probably had all the training you needed. Did you just get out every day after work, or did you do it on
that's
weekends?
exactly right. No, you got it. I trained religiously. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Absolutely. As soon as there was enough snow in the grass, heavy frost would do in a golf course,
Okay.
you would be out with your rock skis.
Yeah.
And as soon as you got a little more, obviously, uh, we had several trail systems that, depending on conditions, you could kind of move from there to there. I can easily say now, when we're talking about this sort of thing, that that was my number one priority in life anyway. It
Okay.
wasn't getting tenure, it was getting better results at Birkie.
Okay. As long as you have your priorities straight. Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Okay. And I hope you still got tenure, but anyway, either way,
Eventually.
eventually, that's good. Maybe just a little later than you had originally
Much later.
planned. There you go. All right. Well, that's awesome. Um, so then you just did your training and stuff, and you probably continued to get good, have good skis, good equipment, and
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
You got it. That was how it went. My spending in those days went like that: skis first,
skis
car
first.
and such things later, after that.
All
So
right. There you go.
yeah, I had my nose for good skis. And in those days, again, people who might be listening to this say, well, what's a big deal? You go to the good sports shop and you get what you want.
Yeah.
Well, not in those days. Most sports shops didn't have any cross-country ski equipment. And if they did, they had stuff that wasn't much good anyway, light touring at best.
Yeah.
But you had to discover who had
Who had it? Yeah.
something important. And
I would guess up in Houghton, you might have had somebody, huh? Or didn't you in Hancock,
yeah, we
Houghton?
we
Yeah.
we did. There was a ski shop up there. The guy
Okay.
was an old Finlander.
Oh, those are the best,
And so
right?
not that he was on with any kind of a modern stuff about that, but being truly an old Finn, he certainly understood what living in snow is all about.
Yeah. And what you
And he
needed.
quickly found a way to import some skis.
Oh, that's good.
It went from there.
Yeah. So now, did you living where you live? Did you drive down for the race each day, or did you stay with friends, or find a hotel to stay in, or how did you deal with the
Well, for
travel?
it, oh yeah, that's another story in itself.
Sure. Let's hear it.
We would typically come down and stay with either some friends in an area, or if you had to book a motel or hotel, it was next to impossible. You'd have to do that a year in advance.
Right. Even
And
now.
I did. Once you get in there, you realize, I mean, the first year was just that. I mean, it was nothing special anyway. You just did
Hmm.
what you could. But when time, then you quickly realize everything got booked. So you have to get your booking in early. I would have my thing reserved a year in advance, that kind of thing.
Hmm. Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
So you'd come in, do you take Friday off of work and come on
Oh, yeah.
down? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Good.
But exactly. By that time, I mean, after the first one, and once you realize you're coming back to do another one, you wanted to do everything so much better than the year before, and you knew all of the problems that you had.
Yeah.
So this was one of them. Get down there early enough, find yourself a decent place to stay so
So
that,
did you eventually collect some skiing buddies to do this with, or friends to
oh,
do this
yeah,
with?
of
Then,
course. I mean,
so who
that's,
do you remember some of the people that you skied with in the early days?
well, sure. Adrian Watt comes to mind
Oh
because
yeah,
he was a famous ski jumper
very famous.
just
Yeah.
prior to that, but he was also automatically a pretty good. George Hovland was another one. These are
Oh,
all
George.
the old
Yeah.
timers.
Yep.
Uh,
I met
and
George many years ago.
yeah, it would
Hmm.
have to have been. Hasn't been
Yeah. Yeah.
around for a while.
No, no, I know he's been gone for a long time, but I do remember
Yeah,
seeing him at a race once.
he was a fun guy and a
Hmm.
good guy and a great skier all around. Uh,
Yeah.
he truly was one of the best skiers I've ever known. He could do anything on skis, from doing slalom or cross country run or jumping.
Yeah. Well, and I think wasn't he a ex-Olympian?
Yes, he was. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a pretty good list of names there.
it's a
You're
it's a pretty good one. Uh,
You did okay.
And he was doing it in combined. So he was a cross country racing and jumping.
Okay. Other kind of traditions that you had? I've asked most of the guests that I've had on this about music. What, anything like that to kind of get you revved up, or what did you use to kind of organize yourself? Spaghetti feeds, things like that.
Yeah, you mentioned it. You're quite right. Spaghetti feed was really it. As far as your routine, getting for it, we all did have some kind of a personal thing. I do remember this. In those days, the concept of carbo loading was a big thing. You
Mm-hmm.
remember
Oh yeah.
that
Yeah.
terminology, of course. Well, that came around and that worked for me. I thought, well, that's just fine.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of literature on that, so you could get all kinds of professional advice on it. I would get very serious on stuff like that. I would read up whatever was available in sports literature about these sort of things. Of course, I would find, and carb loading was one of the things.
Mm-hmm.
We tried to stay on top of that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
obviously, tried
Yeah.
to do the best. So whatever information you could get, you did. And everybody had some kind of a different technique
Yeah. Well,
approach to the.
yeah, exactly. And I think our listeners can relate to the fact that, you've talked about trying to get the edge on equipment
Yeah, yeah,
and the training and then the food,
every
all
little
those things.
thing.
Those are all things. And then each individual person has their own little routine. I know even in our
Yep,
cabin, we might have three skiers and we all have a different breakfast and we all have a different,
yep,
way that
completely
we're going to deal
our
with
own.
our sleep.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good. So now you are given, what my understanding is that you're the person who came up with the idea of the Birchleggings Club. How did that come about?
Oh, that's a good question, and that I can answer easily enough. It uh, it started like this. Tony Wise, of course, started honoring the people who came back from the first one.
Hmm.
That's how the founders
Right.
concept came around. So Tony organized that group,
Hmm.
and being one of the founders, I certainly could see by this time I had many friends, and you look all around, you know what it takes to do this well, what kind of a
Hmm.
commitment it takes. So I really did feel that everyone in there deserves some kind of recognition, not just those who were there the first year.
Hmm.
And with that idea, the concept of the Birchleggings Club came around. I worked on that quite a bit. Had to do some promoting and selling,
Hmm.
so that idea was picked up on and supported. But that was the entire concept. To keep coming back year after year,
Hmm.
something like this, considering everything that isn't involved, what you have to sacrifice in terms of obviously training, preparation, the money, the equipment, you name it.
Yeah.
So I felt deeply all along that this I can say totally honestly right now how it came about as the 10 founders, got honored every year up there on the stage and all that. We really felt obviously it was a terrific honor, but I've immediately felt as I looked around at other friends and such who have done just what I've done and no one knew about them. So the idea came along. There's something to this. Someone who is dedicated like this keeps coming back,
Yeah.
needs to get some kind of recognition. And that's how the idea of Birchleggers came around.
Yeah. Well, I sure appreciate you thinking about that. And that kind of speaks to your character, the fact that you realize that you alone didn't deserve the recognition by
Yep,
yourself, that you
yep,
wanted to share that with people.
yep. That's the bottom
Yeah.
of it all.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
truly is.
Well, and on behalf of all the Birchleggers out there, now, by the way, there's over 2,100 Birchleggers that exist.
Incredible.
Isn't that something?
It's
I was at the
fantastic.
board meeting the other night, and they hit over 2,100 now. And those of you that are listening, that are Birchleggers, just you can thank this man right here, John Kotar, for getting that thing started, and all the other founders. There were 35 founders at first, and then
Yeah.
not all of them stuck with it every year, and
No,
the
no.
numbers kept getting smaller and smaller. And again, listeners will know that uh, uh, Ernie Saint Germain was the final founder up through the 50th one, and that's an incredible feat. But you did a ton of them yourself, and eventually, I think if I recall, I remember seeing, I see there's a YouTube video of you the first year you didn't ski. You were outside on a cold day and on the trail and just kind of talking to the camera about how
Oh
um,
yeah, yeah,
you decided to hang it up, but you were still supporting them and still skiing and doing those things. And
yeah.
I think that's, I've talked to a couple people that have retired from skiing the full Birkie and are now doing the Cordy, and some that have decided to just, to be done altogether, which is fine. But everyone, who's ever skied the Birkie, and especially Birchleggers, I'm sure if they can physically, they're out there as much as they can be.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's far more than just an athletic competition.
Hmm.
This thing it's hard to really describe or verbalize, but somehow it's got to be in your heart
Hmm.
more than in your brain.
Yeah.
And
No, that's right. Yeah. Let's speak to that. I wanted to make sure you said some things related to that when we talked in the fall or early winter.
yeah.
And tell us a little, just to the extent that you can, why don't you just talk a little bit about what the Birkie has meant?
Oh my goodness. Uh, it's a terrific question, and obviously you can only say so much about it. Um, I felt from day one, obviously, uh, the fact that Tony Wise put this thing up,
Hmm.
he had his reasons and some good roots in this whole thing, what this out to me. It was not just a ski race.
Hmm.
It says something about yourself
Hmm.
personally.
Yep.
Um, in a way, yeah, the way I would put it, when things get tough, it's easy to just quit. And people just, I don't care what it is in life. But if you find some kind of a reason for keep going, you can achieve something that you didn't think it was possible.
Hmm.
So that's what I get out of it. It's in this case, it's skiing and all that stuff, but it's the same way. If somebody says, oh, let's go ski 50 kilometers, 30 some miles, whatever it is,
Hmm.
any normal person would say you got to be nuts, of course, and they'd be
Yeah.
right.
They would be.
And they would not believe that they can do it.
Hmm.
And yet we know that it's doable. You don't do it all at
Hmm.
once. You don't get on your skis and ski 50 Ks,
Hmm.
but you start doing five and then six and so on. And by golly, if you persevere, you can do the Birkie.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's well said. Beautifully said. Yeah, just each of us has somebody we know. Either it's ourselves or somebody we know who either jumped right in and just hoped they could finish, and others that worked their way into it by
Oh,
skiing
yeah.
shorter distances, maybe the Cordy first or the Prince
Yeah.
Haakon, and are
Yeah.
working their way up. And I have a couple of relatives this year, or friends of relatives this year, who just I've supported them in the Cordy for a few years, and they said, I think we're going to go for the whole thing. And it's just so
There you
cool
go.
to see. And then they are so proud when they get done. And anyone
Yeah.
listening who has ever skied the Birkie, the feeling. It's like there's a little bit of a, almost every race there's a time when you kind of go, gosh, I hope I can still get this done. And some people listening are just ready to go and they're hoping that they can break 3 hours. That's not what most
Oh,
people
yeah.
are doing. Most
Yeah.
people are trying to get, better than last year or as good
Yeah.
as they can. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's all of those. Uh, Trying to improve the previous year, that anybody can have that kind of a goal. I mean, that's totally natural. And then eventually, as the older you get, if you're going to be skiing that long, then you say, well, I hope I can do it next year again.
No,
And
that's
so,
right.
and you do it as long as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this year was my first year in the Spirit of 35. So I thought of you
Uh-huh.
specifically because I was standing on the line, just so grateful for the opportunity to be there with that group. And,
Yeah.
we're stretched out in a single line across the front
Yeah.
banner, just like you guys were in 73. And I just can't, I pinch myself when I think about how lucky I was to be there and that following in the footsteps or the ski tracks of people as fundamental to the whole thing as you and Ernie and many of the others.
Well, we all followed the previous tracks.
Well, I just wanted to make sure you have time to say any final words that you'd like. I want to thank you so much for your time and I mean you're so inspiring to so many people and myself included. What else? Anything else you'd like to share with people about the Birkie and what it's meant to you, or how to keep it going?
Well, these are really deep questions, and all I would say is anyone who is doing this thing and has done a bunch will find the answer in his own heart and mind. It is that personal.
Mm-hmm.
There are, who knows, as many reasons as there are people who do it, why they do it more than once.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But ultimately, I certainly believe that it's it's good it's good for you. It keeps you on your feet, so to speak, not just physically but mentally. You get older. If you don't have anything like this, it's easy to say, "Oh my God, I'm so damn old. I can't do anything anymore." But if you have something like this as a background, you can see that it's not so. I
Mm-hmm.
can still go
Yeah.
out there. I don't have to be as fast, and I won't be. But who cares? I still go through the woods on skis. But what I can say, it's every bit as enjoyable because there's other stuff. Ultimately, we don't just ski to be fast and beat someone else,
Mm-hmm.
but there's got to be something in the woods in the snow that you enjoy when you're skiing there all by yourself.
Yeah.
That that keeps you in. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, thanks. And I think of that as well. I think a lot of times the highlight of the ski season is not the Birkie, it's the day you were out there by yourself getting ready for the Birkie and you just had a moment with the woods.
oh my gosh, yeah. I hope everybody who skis Birkies and such things does have moments like that. If it's just a race, I mean, it's great, but it's nowhere near the real thing or enough. There's something much deeper in there. And I
Hmm.
kind of believe that most Birkie skiers probably have that because in order to go out to do that much training, to do that well, as some of them really quite do, requires some kind of a root feeling that,
Hmm. Yeah, I totally
that
agree.
brings you in there. I think we're lucky that way.
We are very much so. Well, John, thank you so much. I was just, like I said in the beginning, I was so excited to have the chance to talk to you, and I am just so happy to have your thoughts to share with everyone. And I'm sure lots of folks will benefit from hearing from one of the founders. And I wish you the best of luck. And I hope I see you at other birch legging events again this year
Yeah,
and next.
likely, very likely. The same to you.
Yeah,
Keep on
thank you.
skiing.
I plan to. Thank you so much.
Terrific.
Thanks for listening. Please check out the podcast notes to see links to the Birchleggings Club and the Birkie website. If you've skied a combination of 20 Birkies and or Kortes, I encourage you to join the Birchleggings Club. If you'd like to tell your Birkie story, please contact me, John Peterson, at my email listed in the podcast notes or by filling out the guest application form linked there. Please subscribe to our program wherever you get your podcasts and leave a review. You can also text us directly from your phone or computer using the quick link in the notes to let us know how we are doing.